Greetings all, Ben here, East West. Hope you've had a good week taking a look at uranium as we do every week. And I think the question that I'm asking myself as I look at the charts this week, and as we've been looking at these sort of Wyckoff style schematics maybe building up in that within the trading range, are we springing into spring? Spring for you, of course, autumn for me, or fall, as some of you call it. Strange. Are we getting springs? Are we seeing the end of the trading ranges? So, well, I think the answer to that question is maybe. Yes, with an if, no with a but. It's never clear until it's in the rear vision mirror. But I think we've just got to look at what we can see across the space and see what the market seems to be telling us here on the hard right edge on, well, for me it's Saturday morning the 16th, but for a lot of you it'll be the close of Friday the 15th of March. What can we see? What is the market telling us based on what we can see here, now and today? So I'll just start this week by looking at CCJ. And I think it's always worth going back and just, reconsidering what's happened on the big picture. So I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but this is my biggest fear when I look at the market. And I've pointed this out before, is that what we're getting is a repeat of this three-wave pattern. Now, this doesn't look like a three-wave pattern, of course, but what I see, just as I read it, is that, this is a move up, this is a trend leg, and then we've got this sort of sideways, more triangle action, and this is another trend leg. Okay, so even though it doesn't look the same as that, I wouldn't say concerned, but I am aware that the market could be doing that again. Now, does that mean you should dump it all and run? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. It's not my expectation that we're going to get, some sort of calamitous collapse like that from here. I don't think that's what's going to happen. But, of course, that can never be ruled out. And I think the price action over the last couple of weeks has shown you that even though, the fundamentals may not have changed, the market has certainly just turned bearish. So you can never write off, the unexpected or the illogical, because the market loves to do illogical things. It does see it all the time. But that's not my base case. My base case, of course, is that we're actually going to see. This is probably not a bad example. My base case is that we're actually going to see something more like this. Okay, and we're going to get a three-wave pattern at the end of this three-wave pattern. So I'm not saying it could come this deep. I mean, it could, of course, but we're not all that far away from the 50% mark of the what I'd consider the 2023 rally. So, the low that we've tapped into so far is what on CCJ's $39, and it's only down to $36, sort of 40, where we've recaptured 50%, or we've come back 50% of that rally. Now, if I saw that and then started to see that good reaction away, well, then at that point, I'd be thinking, okay, we're going to get another three-wave move here, because I don't think that the final leg of the rally, and when I say the rally, I mean this, I don't think that's it. I don't think it's now going to, do that. I don't see that as being the base case. The base case is that we get some sort of correction before we go on again. That still remains the base case on the bigger picture. So with that being said, let's just duck in and have a look on the short time frame here, because I think the theme maintains that we're looking at these trading ranges that are forming on the very low time frames. Now, when I was talking about that larger retracement, I'll just bring it up. So I didn't have it quite right on that bigger time frame. This is a little bit more exact, but you get the point, right? I mean, this would represent around about 50% of the 2023 rally, and I think I pointed out this before. Look how quickly that's unfolded. So this is how quickly it can fall apart. A year-long rally, giving up half its gain in 3 months. It's not perfect, but look, my fear on this is that you can probably make a case of sort of 1, 2, 3, some sort of funky 4, somewhere down for 5, even though this doesn't look very impulsive. But the point being is that I think you can sort of see that you've had this strong move, and then we've had this sort of corrective bounce, and then it looks like now we're getting this. Well, we'll look at this in a sec, but a stronger move a move, a correction, and then another move down like that to complete the correction of the 2023 rally. So I'm not saying that it's going to come down here, or this is in fact what it's going to do, but that is just the scenario that I'm aware of as I look at this. So with that being said, we were kind of looking at the idea of an accumulation going on here for the market to find its feet, and then, in my opinion, was going to go up to retest the highs before it distributed, came back down, and that sort of thing went on for a longer time than most people who are holding would find comfortable, because it's just what the market does, right? It's always looking for a way to make you uncomfortable. And so as we sit, we've kind of got something that looks okay here. Okay, now this move down looks good to be a spring, but the proviso of that is, ideally you'd like to see this retest and then, really start to charge on. So, we've got to wait and see. But the problem I've got with this is that what do you do with that? Because just because you can sort of maybe try to piece this together as an accumulation schematic and just sort of say, okay, this looks like the classic signs of accumulation. There is, of course, there's always two sides to the story, and there is another way you can look at it. And this is the scenario that keeps me wary, is what we've actually got here is a redistribution. So usually you would expect distributions to happen at the top of ranges, but the fact that we've moved down and then we've gone sideways like this, the problem is that maybe this looks like an upthrust after distribution. So they just tested out and it rejected very quickly. Then we've tested the top of the range again, no good. Sign. This isn't actually a spring, it's a sign of weakness. And now we've gone up and we're starting to make, well, you can just see it, right? And remember too, this is all short-term stuff. So you don't want to sort of throw the baby out with the bathwater just because of what's happening on the hourly, but you've got to just appreciate of what we're seeing now versus what we're seeing now versus what we were seeing. So you can make the point here that we sort of had this uptrend and we sort of busted away from it, but then of course we've come back very, very quickly. And this, I think I pointed this out, this was just the very early stages. We just had something forming, but it's blown out of the water, and now what can we see which looks quite evident? Well, we've got a series of lower lows and lower highs going in, so we need to break that sequence somehow. We need to break the pivot structure, and we're not getting that. So that just looking at this, that I'm wary until the market can actually find its feet. Interestingly to here is that I don't know, we'll just see, because what we've got here is a nice measured move and the market's moved away from it. So the one thing that's sort of in the favor here is that as we come back for the next measured move, we've kind of broken through where you'd expect the resistance to be, which was kind of in this area. So right now, I wouldn't say that the measured move shorts would be stopped out of the market, but their setup is not prime. So now what we would simply be looking for is the same thing coming back the other way. So, for me into next week, I'm looking for the market to hold sort of around just above $40. If it can just come in here and then take out this high, okay, and then start to do this, okay, then we're going back to that schematic and going, okay, well, even though we've got something funky up here that doesn't really fit, this is starting to look like more and more like a spring, okay, and that we're moving away in a strong trending manner. But we don't have that yet. That'd just be something I'd be on the lookout for next week. And so now I'm just going to move into the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust, and this is the Canadian one, the TSX one. This one looks better. Like the schematic on this one looks a little bit better. It's still not like as you'd hope to see it in the textbook, in so much as that we never had a little test above the automatic reaction, but that's all right. We do still have a nicely defined trend, like a nicely defined range of resistance here, and we also had the way that the way that the schematic lines up with testing support looks all right. and then we've got the spring, and then the strong push away. Now, the only problem with this spring, and remember, just because the textbook says that this is what you're looking for and it doesn't quite do it, that doesn't mean that it's not. It just means you've got to sort of just, you take everything with a grain of salt, because the textbook can't describe a market perfectly. Markets don't work that way. But this spring, when you look at it on a daily, we didn't. You would hope for this. This was going to be a spring. You'd hope for this to close back, so you'd almost get like a hammer candle. Like if you got a spring with a hammer, that would be a pretty good sign. I would have thought that you've got a very good case for a spring. But nonetheless, we can just see on the hourly that we have got the good move away. Okay, good move away here. So that's a good sign. And once again, this one's trending up on the short term. That's why the candles are green, because it's broken through its short term pivot high. So it is trending. I mean, obviously it is trending up, but now we're just very short term. We're just in testing here. So we want to see this broken next week. But I don't mind even if it comes back and does this, because that's ultimately what we want to see is something like that. That's how we're going to get out of here. Remains, goes without saying, but that's just the general what we're looking for. So this one looks better than CCJ because it doesn't have that big up thing that looks like an up thrust through the top of the range where it failed. This looks more like a failed breakout from the trading range, which is what a spring effectively is. It's just a failed breakout. So right now that looks all right. Okay, so that's sort of the good news story here. And then the other thing we can sort of look at here, which is kind of helping, is that, okay, this was, this upswing was 8.75%. You can see it up here, right? Then we got one that was only 6%. But then we started to grow. We got one that was 8.7%. Now, this won't be, okay, this won't end up being the swing. The swing will end up being the actual pivot will end up, because this will repaint once we get the confirmation, which means we need to get another pivot low that's above this one. So when that happens, I'm pretty confident that we'll have this one big swing down here of roughly 11%. So that is bigger, because what we had here is we had a 12% downswing, 7.7, 7.58, 6. So it was shrinking. That the size of the downswings was shrinking a little bit, but this one will be big. But that kind of fits the idea of a spring, right? One last big in your face before we take off. That's kind of what we're looking for. And so looking on the way back up, we had 6.7% swing up. This one was 8.7% swing up. This one, even though we don't know if just saying it was the top, we're now at 10%. So what we can see is that the upswings are starting to get bigger, whilst the downswings, excluding the spring, are starting to get a little bit smaller. So that would suggest to me that that sort of accumulation pattern looks better. It's just like the bulls are trying to find their feet here. Look, all remains to be seen. This is all very short-term chart reading, and it's just like, well, okay, we're not. Once again, I will state this: the whole space for me at the moment is a don't touch. I wouldn't be trading it at all. For me, when the market's doing this, there's no trend in the market. We're just reading the signs to think, okay, are we seeing enough to convince us that it's worth starting to take a trade because we believe the trend's over? And one of the things that we look for is the failed breakdown, like the failed attempt to get below the trading range. But of course, we still want to see the top broken. We still need to see, and ideally, you want to see the top broken in a series of higher highs, higher lows. So that's just what we're on the lookout for. We're not doing any prediction. We're just seeing what we can see. Are the signs emerging? And now here we come to something a bit more unpleasant. So URNM, URNMJ looks the same, but this is what is giving me a bit of pause, because this looks way more sinister, the way that this has caved in like this. I really, this looks too deep to be a spring, if you know what I mean. Like the problem with this one, I haven't done the schematic, but this looks way more like the up thrust, and then all of a sudden the big sign of weakness, and then it's starting to battle away. This looks more like a redistribution, and the way that this has come down is not I mean, look, it still could be a spring, I suppose, but it just my gut feel tells me that doesn't look like that. Okay, this is just a market to me that we've got to wait and see, but it just looks like it. I mean, this is quite sharp. Okay, that's quite a decent sort of drop. Okay, 12%, and not in a very long, not in much time. That's 12% a week. It's not very nice. So yeah, this is what gives me a bit of pause when I'm looking at thinking, oh, okay, springs and stuff. That's why I'm just sort of looking at that CCJ one and thinking, well, you know, there's definitely two ways that this could go. Whereas the physical trust looks a little bit more constructive, but you know, we take this with a grain of salt, because this one looks much more like that sort of scenario that I was talking about, where we've got this push down, we've got this sideways correction, and now we're starting to push down here again, because it's getting quite volatile in here. That these are quite good. These are quite good swings. Like they're pretty short and sharp. So, you know, like we're kind of testing back up to here, and we've just pushed back just into the last hour. But like I said, it's the hourly stuff. We've got to be a little bit grain of salt with it. But you know, I mean, look, maybe this is a spring, okay, and it just, you know, that's the way it's going to go. But I don't know. I'm a little bit hesitant on this one. Same thing again. What would I be just looking for? The same thing coming back the other way. If I saw this hold and then this high get taken out, well, then I'm coming back here going, okay, well, maybe that was a spring. It was pretty bloody deep in relation to the rest of the pattern, and it's not a great trading range pattern, because of course, you know, we're almost really had a wedge going in here. Previously, that we kind of broke through to the upside. And at this stage, you think, oh, okay, cool, yeah, look at that, and then bang. So there's more questions than answers here, as there usually is in most things. But you know, that would kind of be, like I said, that URNM and URNJ are giving me a bit of pause at the moment, just to think, yeah, these look a little bit. You want something to happen. You want some sort of good news to happen, right? Because we're not far away from the 50. I mean, that in itself could be good news, but you know, it would just mean that we're, you know, likely coming in and testing all this in some fashion. So, you know, something like that. I don't know, but you know, sort of getting back down here, that's going to be relatively uncomfortable for most, I would have thought, but it's definitely it's a good possibility at this stage. That's what I would think. Just the way this has behaved since this big run up, it's just yeah. You know, I'd just be sort of thinking that maybe you can even connect into this. You know, but you get the point, right? The market is not trending higher. It is if anything, it is trending lower. So wary, got to be wary with this one, because it's telling us something a bit different from the others. So even now, looking at these UXC futures, you know, sort of reflecting the spot price, and this is just waterfalling now. So I hope that it might have found its feet sort of here in the low 90s, but now, of course, we're falling down to the low 80s, and I think now we've just got to think about that the market looks, you know, like it wants to come in and test down into this retracement zone, which, you know, was probably unthinkable a month ago or 2 months ago. You would have said, not a chance, and it's $100. It's no way it's going down to 75, 76. But, you know, it almost feels like it's a chip and a putt away now. So, you know, this is, I mean, we've got to watch this, but it's hard to see. And this is the other thing that gives me pause until this finds its feet. You know, and there's no gumption being shown here. The market's not stopping until this does find its feet. I think those sort of scenarios of coming down lower and testing into the 50% range they just gain traction. I mean, it almost to me feels like if this does get down here, then all the other stocks are going to do something pretty similar in terms of retracement. So I think you've got to base your sort of thinking about what you're doing around this scenario. Yeah, it's just like I said, like it's the old expect the best, which is, you know, that we've got the spring and we're ready to rally, but prepare for the worst, you know, and this, even this coming down here may not be the worst. I don't know, it's not going to do that. Can you definitively tell me it's not going to do that? Because you can say, yeah, but what about the fundamentals? There's a lot of structural deficits out there, and we're going to run out of uranium. Well, if that's the case, why have we done this? Okay, seasonal, maybe. I don't know, but all I'm saying is that, when markets go up like this, generally they will come back down in a similar fashion. It just becomes a case of where do they stop before they find their feet. Now, if the story's still good, of course, at some point we will find our feet and then we'll go further. But that remains to be seen. All I'm saying is just because you think something can't happen, what's the old Mark Twain saying? It's not what you don't know. It's what you know. It's what you know for sure. Just ain't so. That's what gets you into trouble. And so just think about that. I'm not saying just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just be aware that things that you think couldn't happen can happen in a market. They can happen all the time. Now, I thought I'd just finish with this. I just saw this. This is just yet another pump piece on. I don't know what the go with this is, but just another pump piece on energy fuels. And I just see these all the time. It's just everyone's saying buy it. It's just the best stock around. It's going to And I think anyone who holds it are probably just like, yeah, mate, whatever. Have you seen the price of it for the last X amount of months? It's just been a dog with fleas. Nonetheless, it's another pump piece, so I thought, okay, well, I might just take a look at it and see what we can see. Now, we did previously look at the possibility that this could be an accumulation going on, and we do have some good stuff here where we've got, a range sort of set, top and bottom. We've come back and tested it. And now do we have a spring? Now, the only problem I've got with this is I would have probably preferred to have seen more that sort of thing where we sort of consolidate that range before we just test and then quickly come out of it like that. And we don't really have that. So, just when I'm looking at this, I mean, this is sort of the same as the other, like a high, lower high, lower high, lower high, then potentially another lower high coming in here. And then you've sort of got to think, well, let's be realistic. What we've sort of got here, even though this doesn't sort of line up super well, is we've got a downtrending market that hasn't broken the swing structure. So I think when last we looked, I sort of had this drawn up as the idealized path, but I think a lot of this we can probably get rid of now because it just hasn't happened that way, except interestingly enough, the spring kind of lined up. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of where we're at. I'll just get this little bit off there. I'm going to just put those on there for sort of demonstration purposes. But right now, maybe you just get rid of that because that's just not kind of what we're looking for. But, maybe. Like I said, the market's got to do this before this would play. Okay, and it's not ideal. And like I said, I still think that it's got to do something about breaking this structure where it's just getting these lower highs and lower lows. Now's what you would say in terms of a Wyckoff schematic, I think, in my opinion, is that now is the time. If it can't break it now, and if this now starts to get back down through here, well, I'm probably going to just chuck all this in the bin and move on to a different idea. But like I said, this is why we're not committing anything here. We're not like committing capital or looking for trades. We're just looking for a setup to emerge, because ultimately what we want to catch is the bigger trend on the way up. Now, even if this does prove to be the low, how would you know sitting here now? How do you know that's going to be the low? Well, you don't. You never know that's going to be the low, because even like this, it could do this, right? And you get to this point, you think, hey man, this looks like a low. Like I'm starting. Okay, so I'm looking at this. We've got a higher high, a higher low, and now a higher high again. And now I'm interested in this area. I'm going to buy it here because I think that this is the low. Do you know that's the low? No, because what could happen? It could do this, and then it could just do that. But you never know. So you can only look for setups that give you better odds, and that sort of thing would be kind of what you're looking for, because at this point you'd be going, okay, I'm going to try to ride that trend, back up if it eventuates. So we don't have that. We just look for setups. We don't know that's going to be the low, but I would say that if this is going to play as a schematic and an accumulation event, and there's a lot of factors suggesting that it won't, as we've just seen, then I'd really want this top to get broken pretty soon. Otherwise, you're thinking, gee whiz, there's something else going on here. This is not quite right, and that's why everything's in grey, because it's like I've drawn it in pencil. So look, I think I'll leave it there for this week. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your patronage to the channel. So yeah, I think we're still in watch and wait mode, see what comes up, and let's see where we sit next week. So that's it. Have a good week. Bye for now.